Hey guys, welcome back to Amanda's Cozy Corner. It is February already, and I am already failing all of my 2025 goals, which is not the best feeling, but that's okay. We can course correct, bring everything back into alignment, and just refocus. To be fair, when I set these goals, I 100% knew that they were pretty ambitious. I didn't think that I was going to fail this bad in the first month, but I knew that somewhere along the way this year, these weren't the most attainable goals, but just kind of not reaching them already at this point is maybe a bit of a wake-up call that they need to be like reworked a little bit. So I didn't make any videos in January, and I didn't explain what my 2025 goals even were. One of my goals was to publish at least 2 videos a month. So this is my promise and my, affirmation to myself that we are going to be better. I am going to be better about doing that. This is something that I really enjoy, and I want to improve on it, but part of improving is going to be just being a little bit more committed to it on a regular basis and not as sporadic as it has been. Everything else has to do with reading, so let's just jump into that because I did a lot of reading in January, and I have my handy dandy reading journal here to go through everything. Other than just publishing 2 videos a month, my goals were to eliminate my physical TBR. I wanted to start Brandon Sanderson's entire Cosmere of books because I have not read any of them, and that feels kind of like an affront as someone who calls themselves a major fantasy reader. I am very aware of them. I know that there are differing viewpoints on where to start and things like that. I did try to read The Way of Kings many, many years ago, and I got about halfway through. So I got 600 pages in. I don't think that the mass market paperback format was the right way to read that book, and I genuinely think that it was the format that really, really screwed me over on that one. So that's one of my goals. I had it sort of mapped out that I would be doing about a book a month through the Cosmere, starting with Mistborn, The Final Empire. So I went and I ordered the books and I got the editions that I wanted. I thought they were a little larger and like flappier. That is a little bit of a disappointment. Like I thought they were longer, but maybe I just got the covers that I wanted, but not necessarily the editions that I wanted, but whatever. It'll be fine. Didn't read that in January. So that's one for the February TBR is going to be Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. So we can add that to the list right now. The second major fantasy series, and maybe this is where I'm getting way too ambitious that I'm doing all of this at once, is reading The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan and finished by Brandon Sanderson. So I'm really banking on me liking these books, and I am maybe 70% of the way through The Eye of the World. So I am giving myself a pat on the back for that one because that is, I knew they were big books, but I don't think I recognized just how massive each and every one of those books is. So I, again, had it formatted into a way that I was going to be finishing one of those books a month. I didn't do a page separation. I literally just wrote down I will finish one of these books a month. And then on top of that, I was going to read a classic a month and do the hardcore literature book club that is run, I always forget this guy's name, so I apologize if you're someone who like is a fan of his. He runs it on YouTube, and it was, I think, again, I didn't do a whole lot of research. I just saw it in late December, and I said, yes, I want to be a well-read classics individual. So I just wrote down the list of books that he had on his like book club reading list for 2025 and said, yeah, I'm gonna read those and participate in those discussions. And I didn't. Like I started, so the January book was 100 Years of Solitude. I started it. That book is a fever dream, and I was trying to like annotate it and take notes and like be very serious about it. And I don't think that that's a book that you can really do that with. I think you just have to let it wash over you because everything is so circular, and it's not like there's like one sort of through line, but it's like someone's orally telling you a story, that there are so many different tangents and divergence, and they like follow like small stories to conclusions in like 3 paragraphs, but you've covered 50 years and then you bounce back. And so it's really hard to notate or like annotate that book, but you can definitely like identify themes as they emerge. So I've been really struggling on how I'm going to like treat that seriously. And I think it just needs to be like read, digested, and then thought about later. So I'm giving myself a pat on the back. I'm not a whole lot, like I'm maybe 3 chapters in to 100 Years of Solitude. But I had to hunt that book down, and I eventually was able to find it at a secondhand bookshop, which thank goodness. So other than that though, I have been reading outside of those goals, and I want to, right? I don't want these to be the only books that I'm reading in 2025 is Brandon Sanderson, Robert Jordan, and a handful of classics. So I think because those books are so high fantasy serious, my brain, whenever I'm not reading those, has like really rebelled. So I've done a lot of manga reading, and I've done a lot of, I actually did a ton of nonfiction reading this month. So I finished Atomic Habits and Expecting Better, which is a nonfiction book about, I think it's an economics professor who did a compilation of all the statistics and things surrounding pregnancy. It's super interesting. It's very controversial in that she comes to some interesting conclusions. And the way I read it and sort of looked online, a lot of people are taking her recommendations as sort of the gospel truth. But in the book, she's very clear that she is not a doctor, and that this is just sort of compiling the data from these medical studies to say that when someone is giving you information in black and white about pregnancy, there isn't always a lot of data to back it up. A lot of it is just conventional wisdom that gets repeated and recommended like it's the gospel truth, with very little scientific data behind it. And that's because there's ethical reasons behind conducting scientific studies on pregnant women and the outcomes and the implications of that. And a lot of it is just sort of, knowledge handed down over time. So I read it as use your judgment, right? Listen to your doctors, but also don't stress too much, if you're healthy, if you're, fit, if you're active, if you aren't drinking, if you are, in general, just kind of looking after your health and the health, you're probably going to be fine. But there are it was also really helpful to say no, there are lots of studies where like the medical advice lines up with the scientific or the data-driven analysis to say, like, this is a very serious condition. Like, things like, don't eat mercury-rich fish. But it was also nuanced by saying your doctor is going to tell you don't eat fish, period. And that's not the entire story, right? It's like, don't eat the fish like salmon and tuna that have a lot of heavy metals in them, because that could affect your developing baby. And like, that totally makes sense. You know what I mean? So it's like, why don't you just tell me that? Give me the nuance. Like, don't tell me to just blanket no fish. I think that was the point of her book, you know? So I thought it was very interesting. I thought it was very well written and easy to read. Same thing with Atomic Habits. The biggest critique that I always have with self-help books is that they could be half as long, because they all seem to like just repeat themselves in the second half of the book. It's like they don't expect people to read the entire thing. But, you know, great book. It really helped me stay motivated with some of my other life goals in January, which was like work out, eat healthy, save money, the big ones. So I thought it was helpful in that way. Outside of those two, which are like the serious books of January, there's been a lot. I am like really into just alien sci-fi romance and like just smut, just plain old spicy stuff. And I think, like I said, it's like the opposite of the serious fantasy situation, So we read Ice Planet Barbarian by Ruby Dixon, the internet TikTok sensation. I didn't like it. I've heard that the later books in the series are better, but I was actually pretty actively grossed out by by the implications, because when you stopped and you thought about it, you're like, ugh. Like, there's a lot of like just not even like sexual nastiness. Like, that's not true. It was very like tame in that way, to be honest. But it's like, it's an alien abduction story where like these just women are just covered in like vomit and like urine and feces and things like that, and they don't get showers until like the end of the book. And so like they're doing these like sex acts on page, and you're just left going like, well, wait a minute, like, you are nasty right now, like, get this girl a bath, anyway. Like I said, I think that later on in the series it's supposed to get better, but like, I don't know what jolted me out of the like, suspension of disbelief that you can sometimes get into with books, that made me just so like, this is weird, and like, why aren't these people clean? Like, why aren't they clean yet? Like, anyway, outside of the other ones that I read were Choosing Theo and Freeing Luca, which are the first two books in a series by Victoria Aveline, which is on Kindle Unlimited. They were recommended by a friend, and they were solid recommendations. I wouldn't say that they're like super standout alien sci-fi romance, if that's what you're thinking, but it's solid. Like, well written, interesting, like sci-fi aspects, very alien, like sort of alien aspects of like culture and things like that. I don't know. It's got potential. I'm probably gonna finish that series just because like it's super easy. Like, these are books I can sit down and read in a night and like not feel super committed to. If I don't like it, I just stop reading it and I move on, So they're like not large commitment books. I also was finally able to get my hands on a copy of The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels through my library. There has been a line of holds forever. Like, forever. And every time my name comes up, it's like not the right time to read the book. So I finally got to read it. And it was a hoot. I had such a good time. That book was so funny. And like, it was just like dry and witty. And it was exactly what I needed in the moment where that hold came through. So I'm so happy I finally got to read it. Because that's another big internet sensation that has been on my list forever. I put my hold in for the second book. I get to wait a couple months again, and then we can continue that series. Finally. But that one is like so fun. What a cool idea. Like lady pirates flying their house around, basically looking down upon men in Victorian England was a vibe that I did not know that I needed in my life, but I'm here for it. And it makes me, like, I read India Holton's newest book in September, but I genuinely could not tell you what the name of it was, and I could not tell you what it was about. I was in a very weird place in the fall of this year. There was just a lot of family things going on. My grandma passed away, so there was just a lot of like grief and just kind of hecticness that goes along with the passing of a family member that could not tell you what that book was about. So, little spoiler, that is on my February TBR because I feel like it deserves better, you know? And then we got some mangas on here, which were just like easy, fun reads. We continued The Spy Family with Volume 5. It continues to be a solid installment into my manga shelf. I really like it for like just that like cozy, like funny slice of life, in like a weirdly slice of life way for like a spy, like exciting thriller thing. Like it seems like this is going to like go the direction of like the way that I want it to, which is that these people become like a real family. They recognize themselves as a real family. I kind of want to see if they ever like, if any of their secrets ever get revealed. Because right now it's just like, they get into the most absurd situations and then they're all like, well, that's kind of weird. But I can't let them know that I'm, a spy or I'm the assassin or I'm the telepath. I'm just going to have to like buy this, I can't look too close because I don't want them looking too closely at me. And I don't want them looking into this excuse. It's hilarious. If you want cozy, humorous drama, check it out. It's so cute. I read Volume 5 of The Ancient Magus Bride. Again, I've seen the anime. It's cute, it's cozy. It's definitely like a more like take on like terminal illness and grief and death and like how do you approach death and like the nuances, but it's very like heartwarming. You know what I mean? It's very much a like heartwarming story. You do have to kind of get away, like get past some weirdness. I feel like there's some like mental health representation in there. Like if you kind of like look hard enough, I don't know. I really like it as a series. So I will be continuing. I've like somehow managed to get my hands on almost, I don't know, probably 10 plus volumes at this point. And then like my favorite manga series of all times had volume 13 come out, and that is Witch Hat Atelier. I have been reading those. I've been buying them ebook style, and I'm really, really happy with that because it's just so easy to like read them and kind of look at like do it on the go. I'm obsessed with the art in Witch Hat Atelier. It is so gorgeous, so beautiful. I probably should have read volume 12 again before I read volume 13 because I was a little lost. I had forgotten what was going on. I think volume 12 came out about a year ago, or I read it about a year ago. So it was, I had kind of forgotten, but I didn't think I had. So I probably will do like a full series reread sometime soon because it is truly one of my favorite series of all times now at this point. It's so beautiful and just like, you know, it's like full of like childish optimism, but it's like childish optimism that's like tempered with like real life experience. And it makes you, it gives you like hope that if people had this attitude in the world, like the world could become a better place. You know what I mean? That's a good way of like describing that series, is just being very hopeful. So I would highly recommend. And with that, it's time to get into our February TBR. Now, I went for a little bit of a theme in February, given that it is the month of Valentine's and love is in the air. We are going with pinks, purples, blues, like think like little candy heart kind of pastel colors on the cover, and romances. So like there needs to be, I'm not going to say that I'm reading every one of these books. I think that would be highly unlikely just given my 2025 goals and some of the other big reading goals that I have. But I'm going to give myself the grace to pick from this list what I read. So let's just like start from the top. I pulled like a whole like stack. It's the size of my chair, to be honest. This one has made it onto my TBR a number of times now. And, the other goal that I had is, like I said, to read from my physical TBR. All of these books will do that, and I'm pretty thrilled about that. But I also have some books on here that are, like, on the chopping block that if I don't read them by the end of this year, or honestly, I might even move that up to, like, July, they have to exit my house. I'm trying to get crap out of my house right now. I have one bookshelf, and I want this to be a bookshelf of books that I have read and I loved, so that if someone comes into my house and looks at it and says, like, do you recommend something, I can say literally everything on there I've read and I like approve of, you know? So there are some books that don't fit on this bookshelf right now that I've decided are books that are on the chopping block. They either need to get read or they need to find their way onto the shelf. So it's going to be tricky. I think I might have to like expand that to like include a second shelf, perhaps. The first book is A Marvelous Light by Freya Marksey. It is blurbed by TJ Klune and Alex E. Harrow. And I've read the first chapter of this book, and if I remember it, it's a very like magical realism, urban fantasy that centers around a mystery. And this, it's kind of like a guy is starting a new job, and the person who occupied his position prior to him, we discover, had been murdered. And that's not a spoiler. That's like literally part of the summary. And so he has to be on a sort of adventure mission to find out what happened. This is a series, and I believe there's either 2 or 3 books out now at this point, but this is the first one. I grabbed it honestly because the summary caught my eye, but this cover is amazing. Like the cover art of all of these books are so beautiful. So we're going with the like bold pinks and blues here. I thought it gave me Valentine's Day vibes. I don't know. All right, second one. This one was on the exploding or the chop and block book list. That is Defy the Night by Bridget Kemmerer. This is a YA dystopian romantasy-esque sort of thing where we have an apothecary apprentice who is stealing medication to give to the people who can't afford it, while the prince of the land, is investigating these thefts and is responsible for making sure that the medication is accounted for and distributed appropriately to people who can pay for it. So my understanding is that there's a romance between the two of them at some point, and that obviously the tension is probably going to be that she gets revealed. Bridget Kemmerer has written another series that I also own that's a very Beauty and the Beast based series, and I remember that writing to be very popcorny, potato chippy, just really easy to read and get through, and it was, a good series that hooks you in, but very YA, which has not spoken to me in a while. So I'm a little, if I read this, I don't know that I would be continuing with the series if it's too YA, if that makes sense. All right. Finally, we do have the India Holton book, which is The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love. This is a rival academics go searching for a mystical bird. It's described as a historical fantasy rom-com reminiscent of Indiana Jones, but with manners, tea, and helicopter parasols. I really, really love the Emily Wilds series, and this gives me that sort of vibes. And if I remember right, it has the same kind of wit and dry humor as the Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels, which is also by India Holton, and which I loved this month. So like I said, this is going to be technically a reread for me, but I genuinely don't remember anything about this book, even though I read it in September. So I don't know, man. I have a couple of Fairy Loot books on this list that have come in the last several months that I just really need to get through because I just stare at them and they're beautiful. The first one is Immortal by Su Lin Tan. I genuinely don't. This one just came in the mail a couple of days ago. But it screams romantasy. It's very Asian inspired, which I'm here for. This looks very Chinese inspired. And I've been watching a lot of Chinese fantasy dramas. And I'm obsessed with them. I don't know what it is about that style of storytelling, or the immortals, the gods, and then the having supernatural powers, and then getting sent down to earth and falling in love and whatever. Just I'm a sucker for it. So if that is this in book form, I'm here, for all of that. But just beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Following that up, I feel like Fairy Loot is very into the pink and teal vibe, because this came a couple of months ago in the fall. It's The Teller of Small Fortunes, and this is, I believe, just a cozy fantasy. I picked it because it was pink, and that is good enough for me. We are equal opportunity love people in the month of February, and this has been billed as a cozy traveling fantasy centering tea, mystical powers with large consequences and finding family. I have just honestly been sitting here staring at this book. The bookmark is just in the cover because I was getting ready to read it at one point. But can we just appreciate, the dust cover is beautiful, but the hardcover printing of this book is to die for. I think this is going to be my journal theme for this month. I'm just gonna straight up plagiarize it. off of this cover because I'm obsessed. And it's giving me like big Studio Ghibli vibes on the inside. So, I mean, I will likely be reading this one because I could use some. I could really use some cozy fantasy in my life. So there's that one. And the final Fairy Loot book, I believe this one came in December. It's The Courting of Bristol Keats. Again, the colors just scream, candy hearts. And that's really what we're going for. I know nothing about this book. I figured The Courting of Bristol Keats has to be a romance. And the cover art is leading me into that as well. So this one is also just a beautiful, beautiful cover. And it has a built-in bookmark, which is cool. Love that. But yeah, this one says, never make a deal with a fae. It sounds like her father made a deal with the fae and is kidnapped. Desperate to save her, Bristol journeys to a land of gods, fae, and monsters. There she makes a deadly bargain with the fae leader. But what she doesn't know is that he's the one who drove her parents to live a life on the run. And he is just as determined as she is to find her father, dead or alive. So I haven't read a fae romance in a minute. So this one might have just moved itself to the top of my list, if I'm being honest. One of my personal goals this year is to finish projects. Like, I have a lot of half-finished projects, and to be honest, like half-finished soft DNF'd books. So the next one is one of those. So that would be The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. I don't know why this is a soft DNF for me, to be honest. I'm obsessed with Once Upon a Broken Heart. I loved that book. That was a 5-star book for me when I read it. But even when I read that book, I had to soft DNF it because I wasn't reading it at a good time for me. This month may be the month for The Ballad of Never After. And I heard that this like destroys you with the ending. So I do have the third one. Like, thank God I'm not reading this and like having to wait if that's the case, because I don't think I could handle it. But I love Jax and Evie and their dynamic and everything about this story, if I'm being honest. So all of these books are so good. They're all calling to me. That's the problem. The next one that I pulled also is a TBR vet. This has made its way on many a monthly TBR. I have to make it an option again. I really just have to get to this, and that's Red, White, and Royal Blue. This is a gay romance between the son of the President of the United States and Prince of England. And they basically have to have like a fake friendship that grows into something more. So, I mean, this has been made into a movie. Everyone has raved about it. There has to be like, I have to get to it. Like, there's no excuse at this point. It's January. It's a romance. You got to have some contemporary romance in here, you know? In the contemporary romance vein, another TBR vet that I just did not get to before was Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. This is the most recent release in STEM romance. This one did not quite get the glowing reception of other books, but I am an Ali Hazelwood stan, and I really like her quirky characters and her formula. They work for me, so, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just keep the formula coming, This one is supposed to be between a startup company engineer, who's our girl, what's her name? Rue, who is in a interesting, like, no strings attached, friends with benefits situation with a guy, Eli, and he is a, like, venture capitalist businessman who wants to acquire the company that Rue works at. And they don't know that at first, but then they figure it out and they say everything has to stop once either he has the company or he doesn't, once the deal's off. So this one's a maybe. Like I said, I have to be in the right mood for something like this, but I do love Allie Hazelwood's romances. We're getting close to the end, I swear. I did not realize that I had pulled this many, like, romance Valentine's Day, like like sweetheart candy colored books, but here we are. Apparently that's my vibe of the bookshelf. So one of the last ones, there's two more after this, is A Werewolf's Guide to Seducing a Vampire. I read the beginning of this one. This one looks really cute. This is the third installment in the, what's it called? There's a series name for this. It has, like, a really cute, kitschy name. I don't know, it doesn't matter. So the werewolf is our guy here, Ben, who owns a plant shop, which has sort of been the central, like, employment location or, like, gathering location for characters in the previous series. It's like a series of standalone romances all set in the same world and town. The series has been steadily growing on me. The first one was very cute and wholesome, but my biggest critique of it was that it handled, like, some pretty serious and deep emotional issues as kind of, like, just surface level, like, shallow shit of, like, just put some boundaries in place and you'll be fine, you know? But the second book kind of redeemed itself, right? And it was still a little too shallow for my take, but I liked it a lot more that the characters had to actually make some hard decisions and follow through on them and stand firm, and they, you know, things weren't all just, like, rainbow and sunshine at the end of the book, which I liked, but the characters were together and they were, like, on a path of healing, which was nice. This one looks a little different. It's an interesting situation. I did read the first couple of chapters because I was thinking about reading this in the fall. And it has the potential of being, like, I really like that it's a grumpy sunshine, but it's revealed very early on. I mean, you've met Ben in the previous books, so if you've read it, like, he's not the grumpy one. He is definitely, like, just kind of a quiet, stoic man who wants to be left alone, isn't, like, rough and tumble like the other werewolves. And then we meet our girl, Eleanor, and she is a vampire succubus stuck in a crystal since she was 30, forced to, like, obey whoever owns or possesses the crystal. And they end up through a series of situations in each other's lives, and they kind of, like, have to grow on each other because they're forced into this situation. So it definitely sounds, the first book was forced proximity. I think this one's going to be as well. And I'm here for it because, like, I don't know, I'm on a kick with that trope, to be honest. So this one, Anatomy, a Love Story, which is a Victorian romance, gothic romance, which is all about our main lady, Hazel, wanting to pass the medical examination, but she needs to be able to practice her skills, but she's not allowed to attend the lectures or, like, anatomy lessons that medical students have to do when they, I don't know, is dissect cadavers the right word? So she has to make some illicit dealings with, like, I don't know what they're called, like corpse robbers, grave robbers, to get her hands on practice materials, let's just say. And my understanding is that it develops into a romance between her sort of shady dealer and herself, as she tries to prove herself worthy of a medical degree, even though she isn't allowed in the classes. She's got a bet with one of her professors that, that if she passes her class and aces his exam, that she can then attend the rest of the necessary classes for graduation. So this is a series as well, or a duology, I think, at the very least. I know there's a second story. So Anatomy, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz has been on my reading list for a long time. I've heard a lot of people online really talking about this book a lot and loving it. It looks to be quite short, which may be an appealing part of the book for this month. Clearly, I have a lot of books that I want to read, and I set myself some pretty hefty goals to follow through on. So this may be maybe one that I need to bump up on the list. And finally, I really want to, on top of all of my other goals, I really want to reread some books this year. Like I said, this is my only bookshelf. I feel like one of the things that I look for in a book that I'm going to keep is its rereadability. I don't keep a lot of thrillers. I don't buy a lot of thrillers. I get them from the library for that exact reason. Same with mysteries. Unless it's really well done and has something going on outside of the mystery, I just don't see how that, how that can stay on a shelf, right? So this is classic romantasy. Going back to the roots, A Court of Wings and Ruin, which is the final installment to the ACOTAR series with Feyre as its lead. There is the Court of Frost and Starlight, but that's a novella. And I reread A Court of Mist and Fury at the end of last year. I really, really enjoyed rereading it. It was kind of a big comfort moment that I needed. So I pulled this thinking I probably won't do it this month, but I'm gonna give myself that ability to just reach for my cozy comfort blanket, and if I need it, it's here for me, So that is my list of February possibilities and reads. Let me know what you think. Is there any that you would prioritize, or is there any on this list that you wouldn't recommend? Drop me a line, give me a holler. I think I will probably supplement this in addition with things off Kindle Unlimited. I gotta justify that subscription. So if there's alien sci-fi romances or paranormal romances that you would recommend, or even fae romances, I'm kind of feeling that again. Haven't read one of those in a minute. That are on at Kindle Unlimited, I would really appreciate those suggestions. I hope your book's treating you well. I hope you got a little 5-star situation on your hands, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.